Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Danielle, aka Stitcherista here on YouTube, and today is going to be a stitch with me while I work on Beware of the Cat from, I want to say it's this year's Just Cross Stitch Halloween issue. I am not sure though. So let's recap the weekend and then I'll talk about why I'm working on this project. So Friday, I actually worked on my Primrose Cottage Stitches piece. And Bill went on a boat ride with a friend of his that just bought a boat. So I had some time in the afternoon. And what did we do Friday night? I don't remember. We had pork loin for dinner. I think we just caught up on TV shows and stuff. So Saturday, I was due to go to not a music festival, this like craft festival celebration about a half an hour ride from us, and my stepfather's band was playing at it. So my mom wanted to go, but she didn't want to go by herself. So I drove. So I went and picked her up at 11. The festival was from 10 to 3, and my stepfather was playing in the band from 12:30 to 1:45. So I didn't think we would have been there the whole time, but we wound up staying for the band that was after it too. We stayed for the whole thing. We stayed until 3 o'clock. So I use GPS on my phone. I have no problem driving anywhere as long as I have that. And I mean, this is Parkville area. I've been in that area. So yeah, it was fine. We got there, no problem. We had to park across the street. This was in the parking lot of a church. So we parked across the street at this school, and thank God they had signs. And there was a bus that was actually taking people to the festival, but my mom's like, we can walk. It was no problem. They had a crossing guard because it's a very, very busy street, Harford Road. So very, very busy road. And so we walked around and, they had vendors, but I really didn't see anything I wanted to purchase. And they had food too, but I didn't eat anything. I don't know. I tend to not really eat stuff when we're there. Now, what's funny is that, we find my stepfather and he's setting up and he's like, oh, you can go in here and sit in this area. It was like the beer tent. It was where they had alcoholic drinks, and they had some tables because if you bought an alcoholic drink, you had to drink it there. You couldn't take it outside of that area. So we get there and we go. My mom sees some people that she knows that are friends of the band. So she walks over there to sit down, and there's a woman there that says, oh no, we're saving that seat. My mother looks at me and, okay. So we sit down at the table next to them, like it was up a little ways. And my mom sits down and she's like, she can shove that seat up her ass. And I think the woman heard her say that. And I was dying. The woman came over like 5 minutes later. And she's like, oh my God, I didn't know that you were Chuck's wife. We were saving the seat for you. Isn't that hilarious? The seat that was being saved was for my mother. Why he wasn't saving a seat for me, I have no idea. And she was like, you're welcome to come over here and sit. And mother's like, no, we're good right here. Yeah, I knew we were not going to be going to sit at that table. Not to mention, where we sat was a better view anyway, and we were able to face the band. Our backs would have been to the band if we would have sat at this other table. And I could still hear the woman talking about it like 5 minutes after that. And I thought to myself, she needs to just let this go. Like, just let it go, dude. Like, we're over it, right? So after the band played, now the band was loud AF. Oy. But they're good. And yes, my stepfather is young. He's only 7 years older than me. He is 12 years younger than my mother. So, yeah. Mom is going to be 67 next week, and my stepfather is going to be 55 Wednesday. Yeah. So, yeah, he does look young, right? I posted a picture on Instagram. So the band's playing, and meanwhile, there's people. Now, I hardly ever go to this stuff. So these people that go to these things that are friends of my stepfather's, they don't really know me. So this guy who I've seen at Charlize's soccer games when she used to play soccer a couple years ago, my back is to people, right? Like, we're up front at this table. My back is to everybody else. This guy walks next to me and tickles the top of my head. And I look and he's like, "Hey, who's this?" To my mother. He says, "Who's this?" Meaning me. And I said, "I'm her daughter. I'm Charlize's sister." And he was like, "Oh," I said, "I think I've met you before." I said, "I've seen you at some of Charlize's soccer games." And he just looked at me like, "Okay." So we're standing there talking, and we're talking about Charlize's homecoming was canceled and how things aren't like they were in the 80s. And he looks at me and says, "Oh, well, you weren't born in the 80s. I said, "Excuse me, I was born in 74. He was like, "You were?" "Yeah." I said, "I'm 47 years old. And he just kind of looked at me, but then we just kept on talking. So he sits down next to my mother. And when the band is done playing, my stepfather comes over. There was a chair between my mother and this guy. And my stepfather sits in the chair between them two. And this guy, I fucking kid you not, he says, "I could marry your stepdaughter." My mother and I looked at each other. I was like, no? What? He's like, "Yeah, and this guy's 57. He's like, "Imagine me being your son-in-law." And he went on. And I looked at my mother like, what the fuck is he talking about? No. First of all, already married to a wonderful man. Second of all, even if I wasn't, would not be entertaining the idea. No. So they get past that, thank God, because I'm just like, what? And they're talking. The other band's playing, and this guy gets up to leave. Now, he gives my mother a hug. Like I said, he is always at these gigs, right? He gives my mother a hug, and then he comes over to me, and he puts his hand on my shoulder, and he says, "See you next time, future wife." What? And my mother could not hear what he said because the band was loud playing. So he leaves, and I have a look on my face, and she's like, "What did he say to you?" And I told her, and she busts out laughing. She's like, "He's always looking for somebody. He's divorced. He has a couple kids." She's like, "Oh my," I was like, "What the?" So when I told Bill, he just looked at me like, okay, that guy would have never said any of that if Bill would have come with me. I was just like, are you kidding me right now? So we leave to go home, and I tried to follow the GPS going home. And I should have followed the GPS and not what my mother said. GPS wanted to take me through the tunnel, Harbor Tunnel. Okay, I'm following the GPS. I'm not a map. I have no idea. She's like, "Well, just stay on 95. Oh my God, it took us through all these back streets and crap. And she's like, "Why doesn't it take you back the same way that you came?" I said, "Mom, the road's different on the other side. It doesn't work like that." So it took us an inordinate amount of extra time to get home. And I kid you not too, we drove through a part of Dundalk, Maryland that is not good. We saw a woman who had to be on some kind of drug. She had no pants on. I am not joking. My mother's like, "Oh my God, she has no pants on." She had a sweatshirt and underwear. I swear to God. I was like, what? And you could tell by looking at her, something was amiss there. When I came home and I told Bill, he was like, "What? No pants?" I said, "I swear to God, no pants." And I'm like, "Please just get us home." So I had to take her home and then go home. And by the time I got home, it was after 4:00. And we decided to get Lido's for dinner. and we watched the most horrible movie. Bill and I do not have a good track record in picking movies. We watched this movie. It was called The Card Counter. And it was so bizarre. And Bill's like, my God, we actually paid for this movie, like to rent it. Now, the new Halloween movie is coming out this Wednesday on Peacock. So this weekend, we're going to be watching that for sure. Absolutely. But I was just like, okay. And then we went to bed. The next morning, we didn't have any plans on Sunday. Groceries coming between 10 and 12. And a couple weeks ago, I want to say like 2 weeks ago, Bill mentioned to me that he wanted to clean out his daughter's room. His daughter hardly stays here anymore, but her bedroom is still here. But 99% of the stuff in it is stuff from when she was like 10, 12. You know, she lives with her mother, so all of her stuff is there. And he's been wanting to clean it out because there's just so much junk, and the closet had like 5 inches tall of stuff in it. And he was like, do you mind helping me? Okay. And he's like, we're not doing anything today. Do you want to do it today? So I wound up finding a jacket that I could fit into. It still had the tags on it from Target. So new jacket. But we cleaned out her dresser, her vanity, the closet. She had like this other little thing that we cleaned out, dusted, washed all of her bed linens. It took us a good hour and a half to do this. We wound up with 2 big contractor bags full of junk to throw away and a bag of clothes to donate. It was just unbelievable, some of the stuff, you know, like not unbelievable, just a lot of kid stuff. And I mean, it is her stuff. So the stuff we, threw away was like trash. Old Easter candy was in there, like junk, like stuff like that. We tried to put like all of her jewelry on the vanity. There were clothes that there's no way that she could fit into now. They were from when she was like 10 years old. So Bill was glad to have all of that done because that room is probably the cleanest now that it's ever been. So, and like I said, we washed all of her bed linen. So it's like very nice and neat. There literally was so much dust in that room because, like I said, she doesn't really stay here. She hasn't stayed here. The last time she stayed overnight, I think when Bill had his back surgery. Yeah, that was January. She's 22. There's like no need. You know what I mean? She's working full time. Yeah. Anyway, but there was so much dust and stuff that I was like literally coughing when we were in there. And after we were done, I rinsed out my nose with my neti pot because I was just like, I have to get this out of me. So, but then we were done that at about 1:30 or so. And I read some of my book. I played Candy Crush. We just watched TV the rest of the day, had dinner, and then I sat down and stitched. So last night, and I can now tell you how I came to be working on this project. Last night, I was going to diamond paint and record it because I try to record the stitching or diamond painting part the night before. So all I have to do the next morning is the voiceover part. So I told Bill, I'm going to go out there and diamond paint, for an hour. Because that's usually all I do is I craft in the evening for an hour. Well, I went out there and I sat down and I said, because I have a really good tripod for recording overhead out there for diamond painting. And I've been having trouble figuring out how to properly record me stitching in my office in my recliner. And I've struggled with it because it's not perfect enough. Something's always in my way when I'm recording in here. So I sat down and I said, I wonder if I could put my table clamp it to my drafting table because the drafting table is definitely thin enough. And I could record me stitching out here at the drafting table. And then I'm sitting there trying to think, okay, where am I putting my pattern? Where am I putting my floss? So I did a little bit of rearranging, and I'm actually going to show what I figured out in my cross stitch vlog. So if you watch the vlog every Saturday, watch this Saturday especially because I'm going to be showing that in today's clip. But I'm actually stitching right now. I have this hoop in my Dubco stand from Russia because I said, you know what? I didn't feel like taking my table clamp off of my table in here. And it is just so easy. I just set the Dubco stand right on top of the diamond painting. Yeah, I did. And was able to then work on this project, something that I hadn't worked on in a long while. But figuring out like lighting, because my daylight lamp is in here. You can see on the left, I have one of those Lumino clip-on lights. I have that clipped on here to give me some light. And then I'm like, where can I put the pattern? Well, there's like a little lip on top of the Dubco stand where I actually set the pattern there. And it only calls for a couple colors, so I had the colors next to me, and I was able to finagle the tripod. I might try to do it where this is a good angle. I mean, you guys are seeing straight on. I'm hoping it's clear. It's hard for me to tell looking at it in the, I'm looking at it through my software right now. But yeah, so I enjoyed stitching out there very much. I liked it very, very much. And then I had my iPad next to me on the laptop table, and I just put on Seinfeld, something that I don't have to like look at, that I need to put on something I've seen before, you know what I mean? So I did that, and then I went downstairs after I stitched the W and the I here in Witch. And I think I'm going to do a scrapbook layout with this one. I think I already have the stuff all picked out, I think. So, yeah, I enjoyed working on this very much. Now, I know I don't enjoy doing the pin stitch on Aida. If you see me, when I end a thread, I struggled because it's very easy to do the pin stitch for me to end my threads on Jobelan, even weave. It's not easy to do it on Aida. And, you know, I could end the thread. I'd have to like lift up the lever. I could do that. I'd like to not flip my work over. Now, when I get the Velky Pataki, the whole clamp thing turns a complete 360. So I should be able to flip my work around. We're going to see, because what's probably going to happen up until that point, you're not going to see me work on the Primrose Cottage stitches piece because I can't fit the scroll rods in this Dubco stand. I will be able to fit it in the Velky Pataki because that'll hold a Q-snap. So that will hold that. Now, I will still show progress on that in my cross stitch vlog because I'll still be working on that here and there. But yeah, so you're going to see some different projects here. I may even do, after I finish this, I may even do one of the Shannon Christine Designs Halloween ornaments. Or a smaller, I have a smaller Primrose Cottage Stitches pattern that I really like that's like Happy Halloween or something. Yeah, I need to work on something that I can work in a hoop. You can see I'm working on a hoop here. But yeah, I like this piece, so I will be glad to get this done. And I don't really have that much more to do it. I have the word witch to complete, the word about, the word cat, and then like the cat, there's a black cat and a pumpkin. That's it. There really isn't very much left on this. Okay, now that I've jibby-jabbed for almost 20 minutes, but just wanted to explain how I came to... I liked so much stitching this way because I like using that area out there. And the tripod is not in my way at all. Nothing is in my way when I stitch this way. So very, very happy. And I think I'm going to do some diamond painting today. So you guys may see some diamond painting tomorrow. Because I had a dentist appointment this morning. It's only 10 o'clock in the morning here when I'm recording this voiceover. I've been up since 6:30. I had a teeth cleaning at 8 o'clock. I love my dental hygienist. She's so wonderful. I will be so sad if she ever decides to retire. I mean, she's probably 70. She's wonderful, though. And I love my dentist. Now, I had them laughing because what happens is she'll clean my teeth and then she says, okay, I'm going to go get the dentist so he can do a dental exam. And he was taking a little bit. She said, oh, I'm sorry. He'll be in a couple minutes. He's working on another patient. And when he came in, and I kid you not, he's a jokester. Like, he likes to kid around. Now, mind you, it's like 8:45 in the morning. So when he came in, I said, it's about time you got in here. He looked at me and he walked out. Like, the way that you could get into the dental room was two different ways. He walked out and he walked around the other side. He goes, let me try this side. And we busted out laughing. And he said, oh, her teeth are good, except she's pretty obnoxious. And I said, I had to say that to you. We were dying laughing. And I said, Joe, all joking aside, I said, I realize your job is probably very hectic in the course of a day, managing your patients plus coming in to examine, when people get their teeth cleaned. And we just laughed so hard when I said that. And when he left, she was like, I think you made his day, because most people are not happy at the dentist. Let's face it. You're there for a painful procedure or something you don't want done. So to kind of lighten up his day, you know what I mean? It was so funny though. It was perfect. As soon as she said, oh, he's going to be a couple minutes, I'm like, oh, I'm going to say it when he comes in. Because it was probably a good almost 10 minutes, because I bought a new water pick that's like portable, where it's wireless and I can throw it like in my makeup bag. And I was showing my dental hygienist because I was talking all about it and I love it. It was like $38 on Amazon. It's so easy and fantastic. If I remember, I'll link it down below in this description box. I love it. And it really has helped my gums and my teeth for sure. So she wanted to write it down because she wanted to get one, recommend it to her patients, all that. I had time to show her that. And then we were just chatting because she likes to talk. And like I said, I've been going there for like 15 years, so they know me. But okay, we need to get into the story so I have enough for a video. All right, so this is about Charles Walton. Born in 1870, so we got an old one. Born in 1870, Charles Walton was a 74-year-old local gardener and hedge cutter who was brutally murdered on a cold Valentine's Day in 1945. His body was found the same night on Firs Farm on Meon Hill, Warwickshire. I know I'm not saying that right. His death remains the oldest unsolved murder in Warwickshire. I have to be saying that correctly, am I? You guys that are in like overseas, let me know. Walton had been a landscaper and farm worker for most of his life, and despite walking with a stick, he was still able to take on minor jobs like hedge cutting. For 9 months prior to his death, he had been working on Firs Farm for the owner, Alfred Potter. The day of the murder, Walton left home with his trusty pitchfork and a cutting hook and made his way to the farm. He was last seen walking past the local church at around 9 in the morning. At some point during the day, Walton was brutally murdered. So, Walton was living with his niece at the time of his death, Edith Walton, and she noticed that he hadn't returned home at his usual time of 4 p.m. Due to his tendency to end up in the local pub, she dismissed it and visited her neighbor instead, but by 6 p.m., when Walton hadn't returned, Edith and the neighbor walked over to Firs Farm and informed Alfred Potter. Potter claimed he had last seen Walton cutting the hedges near the hill ground side of the farm, far away from the main farmhouse. The three of them traipsed over to where Walton had last been seen and stumbled upon a horrific sight. Oh boy. Beside a hedgerow, hidden from view from the local lanes, was the body of Charles Walton. He had been beaten with his own stick and his neck had been cut open with the cutting hook. Oh my God. To top it off, the pitchfork had been driven through his neck, pinning him to the ground, and the cutting hook was left embedded in the side of his neck. A cross had been carved on his chest. What the actual fuck? Potter, who was the only one who wasn't screaming by that point, alerted a passing local man, who in turn called the police, and as the darkness set in across the hills, word was getting around Lower Quinton that Old Man Walton had been killed by witches. What? Remember, this is 1945. Professor James Webster of the West Midlands Forensic Laboratory arrived at the scene hours after the police and just before midnight. He was brought in to ascertain exactly what had happened and how many people had been involved in the murder. While he took the body away to work on it, Alfred Potter became the prime suspect. He told police that he had been drinking at lunchtime with another farmer and had seen Walton in the hill ground cutting hedges shortly after. Due to the location the body was found at and the length of hedge that was cut, it was ascertained that Walton had been killed at approximately 2 p.m. Potter hadn't gone back to check on Walton, as he would always make his own way home at around 4 p.m. On this occasion, there had been a cow stuck in a ditch that required Potter's attention, and he claimed he never saw Walton after that. Before things got out of hand in the town, the local police requested the assistance of the Metropolitan Police, who were better equipped to deal with such evil. Along with witches, rumors were spreading of escaped Italian prisoners of war who were being held at a camp nearby. 2 days after the murder, Chief Inspector Robert Fabian and Detective Sergeant Albert Webb arrived in Lower Quinton. They immediately ordered a local officer to stick to Alfred Potter like glue and report back on every little thing he did. An interpreter was sent to the Italian World War II camp to see if the killer had come from there, but reported back that every prisoner had been accounted for on the day of the murder. At the same time, Professor James Webster returned with his post-mortem results and claimed that it would have taken a man of quite some strength to have killed Walton alone. So, being a farmer all his life, 40-year-old Potter would have been strong enough to overpower Walton and push the pitchfork through him. 3 days after the murder, Potter was interviewed for a second time by the detectives from the Met. But already, his story wasn't matching up with the previous interview in terms of the time he had been drinking and when he had seen Walton near the hedge. The cow that Potter had attempted to get out of the ditch had been tested and was found to have drowned the day before the murder. The cow wasn't removed from the ditch known as Doomsday Ditch until 3:30 p.m. on the 14th, approximately 2 hours after the murder. Potter was struggling to account for his time, and Chief Inspector Fabian suspected him to be the killer. On the 20th of February, the local officer watching Potter let slip that the forensics were taking fingerprints from the murder weapons, at which point Potter said that he had touched the murder weapons when he first came across the body. He also strongly believed that one of the Italians had managed to escape the camp and kill Walton, calling them all the names under the sun. When another officer came by the farm and told them that military police had arrested one of the prisoners at the camp, Potter punched the air with joy and celebrated with his wife, even though the story of the arrest was nothing to do with the murder of Walton. Oh, okay. Despite the strangeness of Potter's character and version of events, no fingerprints were found on the murder weapon, and he was ultimately never charged with the murder. Despite Chief Fabian being certain he was the killer, he also stated there was no evidence and no motive for Potter to have killed Walton and had mostly come across as a calm and civil man. So enter witchcraft. On a warm autumn night in 1875, 79-year-old Ann Tennant was brutally murdered in the village of Long Compton, just 15 miles from Lower Quinton. While returning from the shops with a loaf of bread, she passed a local farm where a drunken local man named James Haywood was sitting. Haywood was known to be of simple mind and a village outcast, and Anne hurried past him. Another farmer nearby witnessed what happened next. Without warning, Haywood grabbed his pitchfork and attacked Anne with it. He stabbed her in the legs, head, and neck, continuously stabbing her until he was restrained by the farmer and his workers. Hayward was heard screaming that Anne was a witch as she lay dying from her deep wounds. He was sent to trial for murder and ultimately found not guilty on the grounds of insanity. He was sent to Broadmoor Criminal Lunatic Asylum, which still stands to this day. In an interview to discover his reasons for attacking her, he explained that Anne was one of at least 18 witches in the village and surrounding villages, and that he intended to murder every single one of them. Okay. He refused to give the names of the other witches in case they killed the investigators or other locals for revealing their identity. He believed that witches had been in the village for hundreds of years and had kept their identities secret so they could live among us. He claimed to have discovered this news from a local priest whose job it was to protect the villages. Okay, so 9 years after Walton's murder, and still no closer to an arrest, the two detectives made the link between the killing of Ann Tennant and Walton. Despite being separated by 70 years, The two murders were remarkably similar. A closer inspection revealed that Tennant had a cutting hook embedded into her neck, the same as Walton. The detectives discovered that the method of murder, using the cutting hook and pitchfork, was an Anglo-Saxon method of killing witches. At around the same time, the Met were provided with evidence and material that has since never been released to the public, leading to further speculation of something mysterious going on in Lower Quinton. Chief Inspector Fabian later left the investigation unsolved, stating they had done all they could for the local police. As the years went by, when asked about the case, he had one final message for anyone looking into it. He said, he is quoted as saying many years after the Walton murder, "I advise anybody who is tempted at any time to venture into black magic, witchcraft, shamanism, call it what you will, to remember Charles Walton and to think of his death, which was clearly the ghastly climax of a pagan rite. There is no stronger argument for keeping as far away as possible from the villains with their swords, incense, and mumbo-jumbo. It is prudence on which your future peace of mind and even your life could depend." So, what happened to Chief Inspector Fabian to have him leave the investigation? What material did he and his colleagues uncover? Did they discover evidence of a witch in this small English village? Over the years, many investigations have taken place and many theories have been put forward, all backed up with tons of supposed evidence, but the most common one is the following. Charles Walton's great-grandparents were Thomas Walton and Anne Smith. Smith was Anne Tennant's maiden name. Holy shit! Smith was Anne Tennant's maiden name, born in 1794. She gave birth to William Walton, who was Charles Walton's grandfather. When Thomas died of illness 5 years later, she remarried John Tennant in 1819. This led some to believe that Anne Tennant was the great-grandmother of Charles Walton. So, what does this have to do with Charles's murder, though? An old book about folklore written by a local priest had been sent to Chief Inspector Fabian from another officer. In it, there is a story regarding Charles Walton. In 1885, a young plowboy named Charles Walton was walking home from work at a farm when he encountered a ghostly black dog. This happened for 3 nights in a row until the last night when the dog was accompanied by a headless woman. On the last night, Walton's sister mysteriously died. To the locals, this was proof that Charles Walton was a witch and was even feared by some villagers. It was one of the reasons why he kept himself to himself. Locals later claimed he could cast evil spells and kept toads as pets, which were used to kill farmers' crops. He was even said to have been involved in the death of Potter's cow the night before his death. Locals banded together and murdered Walton using an ancient ritual so that his blood could soak into the ground to replenish the land. Shortly after Walton was murdered, locals reported seeing black dogs on the field and on the lanes around the village. If Charles Winton was a witch, then it stands to some bizarre reason that his great-grandmother was too, and so if James Haywood is to be believed that there were 18 witches in the Warwickshire villages at the time of Anne's death, then Charles would have been the second 16 witches to go. So despite the tales of witchcraft, what we do know is that Charles Walton was murdered in a ritualistic fashion in a small English village, and the case has never been solved. That is so cuckoo crazy. 70 years difference. And they think the local, okay, here's a better question. Why would the locals wait until Charles Walton was 70 to murder him if they chose to do that? Right? Why would you wait until that time to do it? That's what I don't quite understand. But okay. What a cuckoo crazy story, right? We like those weird stories though. Yeah. As always, well, first of all, I hope you guys are all having a fantastic Monday. Another start to the week. As always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section below, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.